Good morning. Thank you for joining us. The guys are giggling here. Thank you for joining the webinar today. Appreciate your attendance, and we're going to go ahead and get started. I'm Wendy Finch. I'm the Director of Marketing here at the PPI Group, and we're going to talk about infrastructure workflows today. So, exciting topics. I am accompanied today by two gentlemen. Richard Hill, he's our Emerging Products Specialist, and Kevin Clausen, Senior Application Specialist on the Civil 3D side, or the civil infrastructure.
Good morning, everybody.
Welcome, gentlemen.
Morning. Thanks for having
Richard,
me.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you for having us, Wendy. This is really nice.
Richard, this is your first webinar with us in our new format. So we like to call this part of the webinar, the first 5 minutes, the Wendy Show. Thanks for joining.
Oh, thank you for having me.
I hope each of you brought a really good joke to share.
I can't think of any other place I'd rather be. This is nice. This is nice.
All right.
Everything you've provided, wow.
Excellent. Okay, good news. Everybody's in a good, happy Friday mode. So before we get started, just a couple of things to, while some folks are still logging in, I see we still have a number of people getting connected to the webinar. This will be recorded, and it'll be available within just a couple of days on our YouTube channel and our website. We'll send out an email giving you guys that link so that you can either review it again or share it with colleagues. So, Richard, emerging products. So that's kind of an interesting title.
Yeah, it's very vague. It really is. It's that way on purpose, in fact.
Okay.
What I do is laser scanning, terrestrial and mobile, and any kind of UAV, UAS systems, so drones for people out there. But sales, support, training. So basically anything that's kind of emerging, people are looking into. We try to tackle at PPI, and that's what I handle. So. Right now, the biggest thing is UAVs and laser scanning, and so tackle that as much as I can. So, yeah.
Excellent. That sounds fun.
Yeah.
That sounds fun. Okay, so if you have any questions in regards to those new products, get a hold of Richard, and we'll give everybody's contact information here at the end of the webinar. Mr. Clausen.
Yes.
So we're going to talk about infrastructure workflows.
Yes.
And so why this topic? Why now?
Well, that's a good question. I'm finding that a lot of people have these icons on their desks that were installed, and I teach a lot of classes and what have you. And a lot of people have no idea what they do, as for why they're there, or that kind of thing, or how they fit into the, I guess, the global Autodesk ecosystem. So I thought today might be step one in trying to explain these things, and how they fit in, how they can be useful, how they can save time, and just basically going forward, starting to touch these different products that just throughout the process, basically. So. Okay.
So I guess we should get started, and let's show some folks some cool stuff. So this is both gentlemen here are going to be presenters, so we're going to swap back and forth a little bit, but let's go ahead and get the party started. So we're going to turn off the cam, and these guys are going to go and get their computers fired up. Fired up. Okay, guys.
Wait for it.
I told them they had to wait until I shut off the camera before they made move. And I'm going to turn things over to Mr. Clausen.
Well, good morning, everybody. This is, like Wendy said, this is Kevin Clausen. Kind of looking forward to this. Welcome to Infrastructure Workflow. We're going to be talking a little bit about Recap and InfraWorks, Civil 3D, and I'm going to probably squeeze in a little extra stuff here and there as we go. Before, like I said, I'm Kevin Clausen, and I hate to admit this, so don't hold this against me, but I am a die-hard Raider fan. And I don't know if anybody watched that game last night. In fact, I can hear I can sense it. Everybody's back at their desks right now. What a crazy game that was last night. I think it took a couple years off my life. So anyway, I don't mean to bore you with any of this here, but I've been around here forever. I just passed my 17th year with the PPI group, and in case I haven't met you, which it seems like for the most part everywhere I go anymore, it seems like I've met half the room. So anyway, you know, I do a lot of the training, a little bit of tech support here and there. My main focus is more consulting and getting folks up and running within Civil 3D, building templates, that kind of thing. So if anybody has any questions on anything, please feel free to give me a shout. At the end, I'll make sure my email is up, and also anything I talk about today, I'll be more than happy to follow up and take you to that next step. So our mission today, first thing I'm going to do is review what I'm referring to as the software inventory. And you'll see here in just a second, there's different ways now to obviously purchase your software. I'm not on that side, but I do know that when you purchase the collections, that's now called collections. Now you have a ton of different softwares available to your needs or at your fingertips. So, and that's kind of what we're doing today. One in particular is Recap Pro. And many of you probably have it. Yes, Richard?
It's in most collections.
Yeah. So I'll be talking a little bit about InfraWorks here and there and showing off just this great tool. Interesting. Well, actually, I might as well. I'll break into it a little bit early here. It was interesting. We did we had an engagement last week. We put on a big show. It was fun. And it was one of our pub crawls. And it came up, we looked at a little bit of InfraWorks here and there during the session, and it was asked, you know, how many folks have heard of InfraWorks, and surprisingly, not that many hands went up, and who knows, the cross-section of the folks that we had in there, but it surprised me a little bit. So I kind of rewrote a couple things here for this presentation, and I definitely want to kind of hit some of those core pieces and give you some benefits of what the program is and how it behaves and what it can do for you. In no way is it you know, intended to be taking over Civil 3D, but it fits in really nicely. And in fact, if anything, I'd say that the two together make your job so much easier. And it really doesn't take that much upfront learning to use this program. And I'll kind of bounce around it a little bit, just give you a little feel for little pieces here and there, and see what you think of it. And then later, toward the end there, I was going to pop open Civil 3D, bring in information from InfraWorks. We'll take a look at the tool vehicle tracking and see how that fits in as well. And then hopefully, as we're doing this, I want everybody to get something out of this. So you can see there, gain new technical perspectives. That's my main goal for today, just to sort of round everybody out a little bit, especially for those of you that haven't had a chance to use the program. All right, so talking inventory here, and this is referred to as collections. And I'll leave this up on the screen for just a second. This is what comes within your package. And many of you have this. And this is what I was referring to is when I happen to be out and about or sit down with somebody and we're, you know, banging away at the program, trying to make something work, or you know, trying to make a design come to fruition, whatever it may be. I see icons here and there, and I'll ask periodically, like, well, are you ever using this? Are you ever using that? And I tell you, more often than not, I find that a lot of folks go, oh yeah, it's been there for a while, I've been meaning to, and I know everybody's super busy and you don't get a chance to, you know, delve into some of these programs here. So looking over that for just a second. Now this is just one of the suggested workflows, and in fact I know that all of us can look at this in one form or another and shoot holes in it. But this is a pretty nice little slide deck from Autodesk, just talking about the different products and how they fit together. So you can see here we have 4 columns, and in those 4 columns, you know, we have different times throughout a project's life cycle. So in that conceive portion there, you can see, and I don't want to read these to you, you can take a look at them, but I tried to highlight a few things that are at least what I thought were important. So basically, how can we possibly incorporate large amounts of data? That's been one of the things with Civil 3D, depending on what information that we're bringing in. Drawing or file sizes are getting bigger and bigger and bigger. And in fact, I just had this conversation the other day. We were laughing. It wasn't that many years ago that when you had a 3 meg drawing that was relatively sizable, and now that's nothing. That's just that's some people's templates now. So how do we get it in there, and how does Civil 3D handle it? And especially when it comes to like point clouds or LiDAR files or massive surfaces. It's still built on the AutoCAD engine, and the engine has gotten better. They did rewrite some stuff in it for 18, but how are we going to aggregate large amounts of data and push that around? And further, if we are working in teams or with consultants, how can we explore and communicate our possible designs? And let's take a quick look at this. And here are some of the solutions. So obviously right there at the top there's Autodesk InfraWorks 360. I got old Rich with me here. He's going to be talking about Recap 360. So that's part of this process as well, whether we're gathering point clouds or scan data, whatever it is. And then we could be using the map for the GIS information, bringing in shape files, whatever it may be. And then raster design, which seems to be making a resurgence as of late. It's been around forever and hasn't changed too much, and it is a neat, fun program, but we showed it off in our last seminar there, or a couple pieces of it anyway, and I tell you, that seemed to steal the show that day. And if for those of you that were there, you'll know what I'm talking about. We were just looking at PDFs, bringing in PDFs, doing a quick little rubber sheet, and then you can actually make them black and white, or I can't remember. Anyway, or binary, I think it is. And then from there, you could actually, clean up the PDFs if they do have like the little pixel dots and what have you. And then the neatest thing that really got everybody, it was almost like a magic trick was shown in the room. They grabbed a piece of text that was a raster image, and you can highlight it and pick it and move it, and it was just like, ooh, everybody was so excited. It is neat, and I forget, it's like I say, it's been around for a while. And then there at the end, I was talking about the collaboration aspect of it. Now, this is a relatively newer slide deck that I received from Autodesk, but you can see down at the bottom there it says Autodesk 360. That's the online cloud collaboration tool. However, I believe the website is called Autodesk 360, and the new one is called Autodesk Hub or something like that. I'm sorry, I think it's it's BIM 360 Hub, I believe it is. So anyway, you can just substitute that last one there for that. So anyway, once we've sort of put some preliminary ideas together, we start getting into the modeling phase, and and we need to take that information, or take this best guess, or our best scientific approach that we can do, or if we like that, we now have to actually prepare it and create it. From there, the connected design. If in fact we are in the A360 there, everybody that we've assigned to this project, if you will, would be getting real-time updates, or if they can be pinged if there has been changes or whatever it may be. And again, you can see there at the bottom, that's the tool that BIM 360. I'm sorry. Of course, InfraWorks can continue in this process, but the main one here that I want to maybe call out, and it's the workhorse here, is our AutoCAD Civil 3D. That's really truly where we grind away, and solid tool does what we need it to do. It does a lot of neat things, but there's other tools, and that's why I'm talking about all of this today with the InfraWorks, we can get much further along much quicker if we use Civil 3D in conjunction with InfraWorks. And then I'll let you look down that list there. I'm not going to keep going in through this, but maybe just since it's popped up there, the vehicle tracking. Of course, we can check our design as we're creating these models. Vehicle tracking is a real-time tool. Many of you I've talked to at one time or another, and I always sort of refer to it as if you have a little Hot Wheel and you're driving it around on on a sheet of paper or something like that. It has true math behind it, and we can actually see all of our paths and everything. And not to mention, it also has three-dimensional capabilities. So we can check our model on the fly. And then, of course, evaluate design alternatives, quickly produce realistic renderings, real-time decisions, and that's really the one I probably should be calling out more than anything is during this process, if we are all collaborating in one form or another, we can see these problems hopefully before they happen, and that's the idea with this whole BIM concept. I have to admit, on the civil side, we're a little behind as far as the architects. They've got this stuff hammered out, and we're definitely in there. But we're trying to figure out where we all fit in and where all these tools come together, and that's where InfraWorks is a nice tool. So speak of the devils there. I'll let you take a quick peek at those. And then just coordination, and I'll just kind of quickly go through that. So that's exactly what we're now. Through this coordination, we do have the ability to go back and forth. We could take this back into InfraWorks if we wanted to from Civil 3D, or a combination of all of these tools. Navisworks is a big one as well. I mean, Navisworks takes everything. We can do timelines and everything else, and collaborate these great big models. It's a fairly easy program to use, and we can do all kinds of detections and everything else. Great program. However, our focus today. It's going to start with Recap, and that's where I'm going to turn it over to my pal Rich here in just a minute. And he's just going to talk about some of the ideas to it. Again, in all of this, some of this is sort of fragmented as far as what I have to show you here. But I want you to, I'm going to try to seam it all together. The main thing is we get this data, scan data. It could be LiDAR or flying drones over images, whatever it may be. And it all starts. And then here comes the little workflow here. We could aggregate that data in InfraWorks. Okay, and that's the tool that you can take massive amounts of data into. It's really, really a nice tool for that. From that, we can play with several designs, or several when it was just different concepts that we want to try out. It's very easy to lay information out, lay out roads, pipes, in a preliminary state, and it uses real-world design principles behind it. So we know we're getting something close. We're not just drawing cartoons with this tool. And we can take a look. We can check our volumes, everything else, and if we think we have something that's doable, or we decide to go ahead with it, that information can be kicked out of Civil 3D. It's not much to it. You just you kick it out. It's an export. You pick and choose what you want to go out. It creates a file for us, and we import that into Civil 3D, and then we're off and running within there. So within Civil 3D, that's where we start pulling. We start actually doing the true hardcore calculations, okay? And then here's where we can start, at that point, collaborating with vehicle tracking. So vehicle tracking, once it's installed, it's going to be one of your tabs across your ribbon up there, and that's where we can start checking, vertical clearances for vehicles, turning radiuses, we can lay in parking lots, what have you. And then from there, that actually can round trip. It's actually all in the same program, but we can be going back and forth, so to speak, within that program. And then if need be, and I've seen a couple of folks doing this, taking a completely finished product and kicking it back into InfraWorks so they have the ability to, I don't know, demonstrate what was created or have a visual of it. All right? So I'm going to turn this over to my pal here and let him show you a little bit with Recap 360 and just talk about some of the concepts behind it.
Yep. All right, thanks, Kevin. Appreciate it. I'll just dive right in. I don't have a ton of time, so I want to just kind of whirlwind you guys, and if you have questions later on, of course, just hit us up, either Wendy, myself, Richard Hill, or Kevin Clausen, and we'll just direct it to the right person. But Recap 360 and Recap 360 Pro, of course, are two different products. Recap 360, or just regular Recap, is, of course, like a viewing software. So you're basically just viewing viewing point clouds or drone information or imagery or ortho type photos, stuff like that, basically. 360 Pro gives you the option to be able to process raw data. So if you have images from a UAV or from just a regular camera like your iPhone or your SDLR type camera, your Nikon, your Canon, or you're moving into laser scanning, you need to do something with that and generate a deliverable, whether it's a point cloud or ortho mosaic or bubble views, or you know, create something, deliver it on A360 or Recap 360 online, and share that information with markups and stuff like that for your bubble views. That's all possible. So just want to show you guys briefly this software that you have most likely on your computer, and you just don't haven't utilized it perhaps. So up in the upper left-hand corner, it'll either say Recap 360 or Recap Pro. The Pro version, of course, the registration tools and stuff. So one thing I wanted to mention too is just with PPI, some of you may not know, but we do resell UAV solutions. So we resell DJI systems like the new M200s and M210s with the dual gimbal mounts and things like that are pretty revolutionary, and with the IP rating, so you can actually fly in you know, somewhat inclement weather, you know, light rain or light dust and stuff like that, where a lot of UAVs, drone systems are hindered by those different environments. So if you go up here, you can play with your settings. This is just a brief little quick 10-minute demo basically, but if you go to new project, we have the whole power behind this one software is pretty amazing, because the cost per year, either it's involved already or included in your collection already, or it's only $300 a year for the Pro version for get you out of the gate on the ground running and be able to process scan data and imagery data. So you'll see here the first step would be to go through and rename your project here. So let me click in here and get this going. So you can basically say, I want to import a point cloud, or I want to do photo to 3D. So if you're working with drone data or with laser scanning data, or I'm sorry, drone data or any images whatsoever, you would pick photo to 3D. And or if you're working with laser scanning data, whether it's a aerial LiDAR that you picked up from a county consortium or something, or you picked up from USGS, or you picked up just from your surveyors that give you that as a deliverable. That can either be individual scan locations, or it can be just one massive data set. That's it's kind of telling software what kind of data are you going to bring in. So for example, if we do point cloud, we can name it PPI group demo, name it whatever you want. And once you name it, you hit proceed, and then you can import your files. So for example, I just have a couple here. You would just drag them and drop them into this view, and then it run through some filters. So I won't go too crazy into them, but you have range clipping, filtering of your point clouds, and you have a decimation tool, which is huge. So let's say you get a big data set from aerial LiDAR. The first thing you want to do right here is decimate it, most likely. It may already be decimated, but if it's a huge, like 20 gigabyte file, you can go in and say, I want to decimate it, and I want it decimated at 50 by 50 millimeter grid. And so it's going to delete or remove all the points in between and just create a grid for you. So that's a huge factor right there if you're working with an older computer or something you want to basically limit or dial down, if you will, and you can do that. And you can do it as many times as you want. So you bring in a file, decimate it, look at it and say it's still too large. Let me clip out an area, decimate it again, and, on re-import. So there's lots of cool ways to do that. So once you say import files, it'll go through the process, but for the purpose of this webinar, I'm not going to do that, just because it will take a few minutes per scan location to actually import, colorize your scans if it does have color information, and pull that in. So for example, you know, we have a lot of different demonstration pieces and stuff, but hopefully this is loading. Is it looking on your screen? Okay, cool. So this is loading up basically a data set here, and this is full 3D. It looks like a color image, of course, but if you rotate around, and I'll give it a second to load each time, you know, you can actually see in full 3D. You can hold down your shift button and do a fly-through mode. Hopefully this isn't lagging too much online. So I'll give it a second to render. That's the only thing with trying to show 3D data online is it definitely lags. So I'll load. But you can fly around, play with those tools. It's pretty awesome. The other thing, of course, is the bubble view. So you can bounce into a bubble view just by clicking on it, and we'll give that a second to load as well. Just tell me when you're good, Wendy. Okay, good. All right. So we can pan around and look at different things. The cool thing is this looks like a photo, but there's actually 3D data behind there. So if I wanted to do a distance, all I need to do is snap on 2 points, and it gives us our XYZ coordinates as we're drifting around with this little hockey puck thing. So we can actually click on that. We can see we're set to feet. Of course, we can just change our units of measurement if we wanted to. I'll say done. And we can change it to different settings. So really cool. Another thing that's pretty awesome is the ability to mark things up. Like this area needs to be taken out or improved or removed. So you might say, well, that's cool, but it's only on my desktop computer. But I'll show you a quick little cool thing here in a minute. We also have where you can create notes. So this is a huge factor for people as well, where we click and we say note, and we just name this, say replace or inspect. And we could add images, additional notes if we want to. We'll do that. So I did a couple different things here. Now I can bounce back to 3D, zoom out a bit, and now you can see in full 3D we still have those annotations and things like that, which is pretty cool. We have our distance, we have this as well for our notes, and we can really label up things and create almost a BIM scenario here. Then once you've done a lot of those, you can actually share this with A360 or Recap 360 just by publishing. So this is a little cloud icon here. So if you say, I want to share everything I did as far as registration, the scans, everything, plus all your notes, all you need to do is upload by clicking this button, and it'll go straight to your account, and then you can log in there and share it with whoever else you want, and all your notes, measurements, annotations, all that stuff goes with it. So really cool way to share, and then they can do their markups and notes and stuff through their software and just kind of keep working and collaborating. So that works awesome for people that are not locally together. Of course, in here, just briefly, I'll show you can actually do lots of different views. So this is elevation, and change your color spectrums and stuff like that. Of course, grayscale, blues, you know, spectrum seems to work best, but you can play with those. I won't go into it too much because I don't want this to turn into a training, but so you can play around with a lot of those different options, and you can also switch to intensity, which is pretty cool too. So reflectivity, basically, and a lot of people look at grayscale for that, which shows you how reflective objects were when you scan them, basically. So I will bounce back out of here. So that's working with laser scan data. Once you've done that, let's say, and you've collaborated, you've done everything, it's really cool because everything that's prepared in Recap 360 Pro is in file formats that will go into any other Autodesk product. So we have an RCP, which is a recap project, and then tied to that is all your RCSs, your recaps. So if you have one aerial LiDAR set, you can mess with that, and that would be an RCS. And you can export that RCS or trim it or clip it or whatever. It's really cool because it's already ready. You don't have to do any conversion or anything like that. It's prepared for Civil 3D or InfraWorks or Revit or whatever. and NavisWorks. You know, a lot of people like to bring this data straight into NavisWorks and do clash detection, point cloud to 3D model. So that's a huge factor. Go into a pump house, scan everything, throw it in here, put it, register it, get it all ready, and then throw it in NavisWorks and do your clash detection on your new design that you want to try out and see if it's even going to work. So, and you didn't have to do any modeling, anything like that to the point cloud. You already kind of had your preliminary model drawn up. So this is actually a UAV data set. So the way this actually works is I'm going to click on New Project, go to Photo to 3D, and what it actually does is it brings you to the Autodesk cloud service, basically. So once we have this, it basically shows us all the different projects that we have already preloaded or we've worked on before in the past. So you can actually take a look at these, click on them. You know, if you go to any one of these and kind of click on it, it shows you, do you want to publish it? Do you want to edit it? Do you want to share it? Do you want to generate a 2D map, so kind of like an ortho mosaic? Do you want to create a 3D point cloud model from the imagery? All that's within this this menu, basically. So if I want to create a new one, you just click on Photo to 3D. Sorry, I clicked the wrong button. So if you want to create a new one, of course it'll have to upload, and you want good internet. You click on Photo to 3D and you basically upload your imagery. One thing that a lot of people usually have questions about is, can I georeference or get that data on the right coordinate system? So right in the software you can actually assign coordinates. They're not required by any means, and you still get a great result, but sometimes you want it to snap right in the right location in Civil 3D. So in doing that, you need to have at least 2 or 3 is ideal control points. All you do is import in that text file or CSV and assign coordinates to the images, and it will automatically place it in the right coordinate system. So really, really cool features with that. So whether it's a drone or a UAV or individual images with your camera, either one of those work well within the software. Once it's done, you basically download your RCS or your RCP, and then you can import, just open that up with any Autodesk product, or you can bring it into Civil Recap 360 Pro, just like this data set was. And one thing that's really I noticed a lot of people really love is I have this huge data set. This won't work in Civil 3D right now, and it's getting better all the time, but it's too large. And you say, all I want to work with is this intersection. So if you have an entire county data set, but you say, I just want a quarter mile of this highway, you know, you basically just draw a polygon or a square or something. You clip everything outside of your selection, so you're hiding everything else except for this. You can even do things like getting rid of the vehicles. So just pick 3 points on a plane. And of course, this is UAV data, so the accuracy is not quite as good as laser scanning. You know, we're talking millimeters versus you know, centimeters type accuracy, but the right tool for the right job, essentially. So I want to say clip inside, so you're removing everything else, and you can actually just select these vehicles, get them out of here, so you're just cleaning up your data basically at this point. So I remove those vehicles, so if you do create a 10 surface in Civil 3D, you can work with that. Another cool thing is if you just want to work with just this intersection, you can clip everything outside. Make sure you pick the right one, not clip inside or outside. So you say clip everything outside of my selection, and you say I just want just this. So you can go up here, go to export, export this as an RCS, recap scan file, and I'll save it to my desktop here, and we'll just call it intersection and hit save. And usually this only takes a few seconds, which is really cool. So once you have this RCS exported, you can bring it straight into any Autodesk product, and it's a lot more simplified. One last thing that I'll touch on real quick here before I turn it back to Kevin is let me unclip all. It's regions. So regions are a way to organize your data, especially with UAV stuff. So if we fly over this building, for example, we fence it in, create our fence tool, and we just say roughly this building. Double click to close it out, and I want to create a new region out of this. And we'll call it building, BLDG. Okay. So now that's a region for building. And let's assume or pretend these vehicles are buildings as well. So we can also just fence those guys in and just say these are buildings as well. So it's a way of organizing your data, if you will. Double click to close it out, hover over building, click it, and it will actually throw it in that layer as well. So we can actually go on our bottom right here and turn off or hide the building layer, if you will. I think of it as layers. They call it regions, but it's the same thing. You know, you're organizing your data. So you can take this and basically go through and categorize everything. So if I want to just turn on just buildings, I can actually take unassigned points, which is everything else that's not assigned, and just turn it off. So a quick way to be able to move and organize your information as you're working through it, basically. So hopefully that's a good summary. How are you looking, Kevin?
Oh, very good.
Okay, cool.
You look great, thank you.
Yeah, you do. So whether it's scan data or drone data or just anything at all to do with photos or LiDAR or light detection and ranging information from any sensors whatsoever, terrestrial, aerial, mobile, or UAVs from stereophotogrammetry. Recap 360 Pro gives you a lot more functionality and a lot more tools to work with that. So, all right, with that being said, please hit me up if you have any questions at all for pricing, questions, all that stuff. So without further ado, I will let Wendy stop sharing my screen here.
All right. Kevin? And I'll just remind you while he's accepting that, I'll just remind you that hopefully we'll have some time to take some questions. So go ahead and type those in throughout the presentation, and if there isn't time, we'll make sure that we follow up individually with you. And while, again, waiting for Kevin, or it looks like his screen is showing, but just want to let you know that we've got Tom out there. I think Tom's up there in Seattle. I won't give out too much information, but he's heckling you guys just a bit. And so I just kind of want to throw that out there, that you don't have to be in a live situation, you know, face-to-face with people for them to heckle you. So he does want to point out that that was kind of a lucky reception last night.
A lucky, what was it?
Lucky reception.
Oh my goodness, Tom, can we cancel him?
All right, so
you know, I have to admit, that game, I am still buzzing from it. And I don't care if I win another game, and I probably won't. But as long as we beat the Kansas City Chiefs, I am as happy as a clam.
you know, he's a bit of a Seahawks fan, so.
Oh, that's sad.
I know. All right.
No, I like my Hawks too. I'm just teasing. Yeah, I know. It's hard being a Raider fan, believe me. 15 years of losing it. It hasn't been that much fun, but you know, darn it, I was born into it and it's stuck with me. Well, thanks, Rich. I'm already looking at the clock there. We are running short on time, so I'm going to truncate a little bit of this here and there. But however, if this is well received, I'd be more than happy to do more of these. I'm looking at Wendy here, so
that's excellent.
If we can do, you know, like maybe those next steps. You know, I gotta be honest, today is probably a little bit more of just sort of explaining the pieces, how they fit together, especially after our meeting the other day. I think that it's probably necessary. So anyway, I'm gonna jump into it. I got about 15 minutes left here, so I'll try to make this quick. Talking InfraWorks 360, and you know exactly what does it do. So maybe think of it this way. When we're getting starting the initial job or the preliminary aspect of the job, and in this case we're compiling the existing conditions. So what I did on this is there's a couple of videos out there, you may have seen them. I thought I'd like to go back to them. They were created by Eric Chappelle. I'll have my email up at the end, you can get a hold of me, and I'll definitely send you a link to it. They're fantastic, and they really just kind of break down what this program is at this stage and really give the benefits of it. And there's a couple of pieces out of it that I wanted to show. And in saying that, you know, this is going to show the speed and all of that. And in no way am I trying to say that, you know, this InfraWorks is against Civil 3D. So, you know, I just want to maybe preface that a little bit. They're companions, or they're, you know, maybe I think the old term was like parallel products. And they really enhance the overall use. Okay? So let's take a look at this thing, and I was going to walk you through it a little bit. And what this is this is a real-time, through the magic of television here. On the left-hand side, they're aggregating the data in the traditional method going through Civil 3D. And you can see underneath there on the 1 through 6, the steps, that's exactly what they're doing right now. They're going in through Civil 3D, through the map portion or map 3D of Civil 3D, and they're acquiring the data. Now, this clock that's set is, you know, in fact, there's a big note there. A clock does not reflect time required to research. I've been a part of these research things, and they can take hours, multiple days, if the information is poor, or for that matter, I don't know what I'm looking for, or I'm getting the wrong data, or coordinates are bad, or, you know, who knows, during, you know, translations or, you know, conversions, or who knows what it is. So what they're doing here is everything is an absolute no. And they're just going through everything and compiling it, and they're making sure everything matches up, ties together, querying data in, bringing in shape files, all that kind of thing. And right now they're at, you know, 4 minutes. And again, this is known. They know exactly what you do. It's like they're racing. The gun went off, and he's trying to shoot through it. Now you see about 30 seconds ago, InfraWorks did the same thing. And all we're trying to do is get a starting point. We want a surface. We want contours possibly. We want what else do we want in there? Just, you know, well, obviously datum, so we can start our design. Figure out where roads are. You know, and that's all part of that GIS portion of it. Is, you know, we need to import vector data and everything else. Well, on the right-hand side, you can see where it just flipped around, and we're in a 3D mode. So head-to-head on that, it took a little over 2 minutes to complete that process in InfraWorks. And now, if the other one was, what, a little over 6 minutes, something of that nature, realistically, it would have taken hours to compile that data in a Civil 3D or map, I should say. And then from there, you have to start, you know, you have to take that information in. You have to then, you know, start creating surfaces from that GIS data. Sometimes it's easier than other times. Like I said, if there's busts or you have some kind of, you know, coordinate conversion that isn't working correctly, and you end up really chasing your tail on it. Now, at the end of that video, and I borrowed this from Eric as well, I thought this was kind of interesting, where we're looking at the two side by side at the end of it. And again, at this stage of just compiling that existing information or the existing conditions, so we can actually start our design. And if you look at these two, hopefully you can see those are a little small. Can you see those okay, guys?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So potential hours spent locating data, yes. Well, you're going to see here in a second, I'm going to do the same thing in InfraWorks. I'll just do it live and just kind of give you a quick little go on it so you can see how quick and easy it is to do it. And in fact, I don't know, I can't help it. InfraWorks is kind of fun to run. For those of you that have a chance to use it, you have a little bit more artistic impression than some of the other, you know, programs out there, like, you know, Civil 3D is a definite hardcore number cruncher. I'm not saying that InfraWorks isn't, but it's a little bit more forgiving, and you can, you know, really lay out a lot of designs very, very quickly. Okay. So at that first stage there's virtually no time spent acquiring the data. So that second one there says expert level skills are required. Yes. For those of you that put that information together, it's more than just importing a shapefile. You have to know what it is. You have to know what the translation. There's a lot to it. Are things matching up correct? You know, on and on and on. Again, over in the on the other side there, piece of cake. It's just pick and choose, and it's going to give you that information. On the left-hand side there, with Civil 3D alone, multi-step. I like the terminology here. Messy process. I think that's nice. You'll see it's just one single location where we create a model and we pick and choose what we want. And then on the left there, again, next one down, end result, aerial image with contours and lines. And on the right, end results, a 3D model with terrain, 3D imagery, 3D roads, 3D water features, on and on and on. Buildings, what have you. And then post-survey Civil 3D used to generate detailed existing conditions in the drawing. And then, of course, detailed info can be visualized in contextual in 3D. So that was that last part of it. You know, once it's thrown together, we're pretty limited in what we can do in Civil 3D at that stage. If we rotated it back, of course, our images are going to be draped necessarily. I mean, there is some tools to do that kind of stuff. You have a really user-friendly or the ability to visually check it out, see if things are going to be working out. Okay? So just to maybe pop out here and show this real quick. And just kind of show where all this is at, because I got a limited time here. So I'll whip through this real quick, and then again, I'll hang out if there's questions, whatever there is, or for that matter, like I say at the end, I'll have my email there. We can get online or whatever we got to do to further your knowledge on it. So when you crack open InfraWorks, you'll notice this is the interface here. There's you know, different projects already in place that and in fact, again, through the magic of TV, I threw one together here real quick so we didn't have to wait for it. It's surprisingly quick though. And to prove the point here, if I wanted to go out and knew a location, or for that matter, maybe I know of a landmark or who knows what it is, what I can do is you go into what's called the model builder. And this pops up here. And within the model builder, you can see over here on the right-hand side, I can search by location, or if I had an address, or I could actually just start zooming in and out and figure out where I want to go. In fact, I don't know, why don't we do this? A landmark. How about a Space Needle? Probably heard of that. So anyway, if I took the Space Needle, it'll zoom right into it, and the location, I believe it's right there actually. They took the circle out of it here. But if I wanted this, it would be nothing more than just, you know, hitting play, and I can extract it. Obviously, I can zoom in, zoom out, so you don't even have to necessarily have an address. I did, though, just for kicks here. I'm going to punch in our address here, if I can remember it. It's 6015, so you can send me a letter. The 6015 Northeast
Christmas card.
Yeah, that'd be nice. I would like that. There it is right there. I'll just click on it real quick. And as you can see, it zoomed right into where we're located. In fact, I make this trip every single day. I come on down here, Columbia, at least when I'm in town, and then we cut down 80th Avenue, and we're somewhere in this location. So what I did, and again, for speed here, I kind of rotated, or not didn't rotate, but I dropped it back so I could see some water, some of the highway over here, and still keep our location in the down here in the north or the southwest quadrant down here. Now, if I want this, and which I do, but again, you can zoom in, zoom out, pan, wherever you want to place it. I can even actually go with, and this is just taking, maybe for the record here, this is just taking my actual picture of what I'm seeing, so my screen. But if you hover over these, you can draw rectangles and polygons and what have you. Now the information down here, it's reading this area, and it's telling me that it has different information inside of this model already that we can pull from. You can see that there's roads, buildings, imagery, and elevations. Now, anybody's curious there, the elevations are, I think they're called the NED, the National Elevation Data Set. The images are just Bing maps. So those do periodically get updated. And then the roads and highways is OpenStreet maps. And same with the buildings. So all of that, in fact, some folks will actually go in and create it because it's an open source. They'll go in and they'll create their own building. They use it almost as if it's a advertising. So instead of just getting a generic building with a generic facade on it, they'll actually go in through, say, Revit or something like that, break it down to a model, and they can plug it in there, and it'll keep a running tally of who did what, when, and what have you. So it's kind of neat. And then I would name it, and then I would create the model. Now I don't want to do it because it takes a minute or two, and what ends up, it's not that long at all. In fact, it didn't take long at all. But what you end up with is you'll get an email, and it'll tell you that your model is ready, so it sends it out to the cloud, it renders it, does all that kind of thing. And then at the end of it, you should get something that looks like this. There it is. And what am I looking at here? This is just the area. It's elevated, like we were talking about. If I rotate this back, you'll see that there's actually buildings that came in. All of these have the ability to be, adjusted. You can actually set it to an actual value. You can draw your own buildings in, all kinds of stuff. If I take this around here, you can see that it's always a pretty day down here.
Yeah.
Look at that. Look at that.
Is that you sunbathing?
It is. No, I'm floating. I'm just floating. Look at it from all the different views. I can take it back up to the top, whatever, and rotate this thing around. But where are we at? So and this actually does look like our building for the most part. It should. Yeah, I don't think anybody cares that much, but
IKEA.
yeah, there is IKEA, isn't it? Here we are. Now the only thing that's rough about this, for those of you that run the program, you'll feel my pain with this one, is the buttons are a little bit different. Instead of zooming in with the mouse wheels, the pans are a little bit different. So when I run InfraWorks for a while, it messes up my Civil 3D, and then when I run Civil 3D, it kind of does the same thing on the other direction. So, but we're just sitting back in here, and but very, very easy. Again, all of this information was in there. Notice the roads. So these are roads that were drawn in, and I don't have much time here, so I'm going to kind of cut to the chase on some of this stuff. These roads are very, very easy to draw in. What it does is when you click, the PBI extracts information from the surface, and then through using ASTRO tables and design criterias, it will do its speeds, all of that kind of thing. It'll do its best to draw those roads in. And with those roads, you have the ability to take them into profiles, and you can get this really, really close, or at least, at the preliminary stage. When you like that, or whatever it is that you put together, and I'll quickly, well, actually, let me show a couple other quick things here before I jump out and go into another program here. But InfraWorks tabs here, expanding that out, looking down below here, the data sources. I'm just going to point these out for now, and what I'd like to do is maybe when we all get back together, we can get into individual pieces quite a bit deeper. But the data source, you'll notice this is over here, similar to like the map workspace, although it's very works and behaves differently, but similar to the map workspace within Map 3D. And this is everything that's brought in. You can see that there's buildings, coverage areas, ground imagery, railways, roads, terrain, water areas, all these different things. Now, also, though, and this is a bit similar to, say, Navisworks, where this is an awesome civil tool that will allow us to compile data from everywhere. So up here, you can attach to different data sources. So wherever I click on that, you can see that there's Oracle, SQL, all kinds of different things. And then to the left of it's probably the most common, at least what I'm using more often than not, and most folks that I know are, here's where you can go in, you can pull in information from Civil 3D, DWGs, you can bring in solids, whether it be surfaces, pipes, whatever it is that you've created, that's that option right there. Going down here a little bit, what else can, oh, actually, I did want to point this one out here. You can bring in the point clouds too. And it's just nothing more than a quick right click, or just click on it and let you browse out, grab it. And then once it's brought in, you have the ability to go into any one of these, and you can actually, change the datum, adjust it, make sure it goes into the exact appropriate location. You can, if it's a building, you can go in and make sure that it drapes upon the surface, the existing surface as it is. Imagery here, it pulled the Bing map imagery, but if you were to look at, I'm just looking back over here, you can see these, whatever this is, it's just a little fuzzy. If this was an area that we were going to put in IKEA tube in here or something like that, we'd want to obtain higher quality images possibly, just and or more updated images. And it's just a matter of right-clicking and bringing that, or clicking on it, bringing it in, configuring it, and there's really not much to it.
Or use your drone.
Or you could use your, better yet, yes. So and then also with surfaces, you can do the same thing with that. If it requires a terrestrial survey to go out and really fine-tune this thing, then the overall product can still be exactly what it is, but we can, in certain areas, we can just bring in those models and update our current surface. Now I'm running out of time here, so I got about 20 things to show.
Okay, so here's my thought,
Okay.
because I am watching you watch the clock and beat the clock here.
Okay.
So we are recording the webinar. So for those of you that have to hop off the webinar, we will have that recorded version available to you in a couple of days. For those of you that's got time and you want to hang out, and we'll just proceed on.
I don't have too much more to show. I just wanted to,
we'll just proceed on, but we're not going to hold it against you if you have to hop off and make another appointment or get lunch or whatever it is that's on your schedule. Okay?
Are you talking to me?
No, I am not talking to you.
I'm going to go eat.
I'm talking to everybody but the two of you.
Yeah, I don't have too much more to show here. I'm going to kind of cut to the chase on some of these things. I wanted to show a little bit of vehicle tracking and just its simplicity. So after it's all said and done, you can draw your roads in. Again, it adheres to design standards that we set, and it's just a pick and click. You lay them out, you can move them, you can play with other elevations, whole 9 yards. And after it's all said and done, you throw in fact, I was going to play with the cul-de-sac here in just a second, but you can pick a location, turn them into design roads at an intersection, and then it's just, there's nothing to it when it comes to creating a cul-de-sac. You just, and then after it's all said and done, you would go to your little export functionality, and you can export out an IMX format, and that can just as easily go, you just pop open Civil 3D, and you draw a box around what we want here, and then as you import it into Civil 3D, you got to make sure you're in the right coordinate zones, so that matches up. And then what it does is it brings the behind-the-scenes project data, the alignments, possible alignments, profiles. You can bring surfaces in, things like that, right into Civil 3D. So when we get into Civil 3D, that's again, and this is what I was saying a little bit earlier, is Civil 3D is the hardcore calculator. That's where we do the true math. InfraWorks does give us the ability to customize roadway assemblies. I don't know if they quite call them that, but I think it was for you old school folks like me, we used to back in Land Desktop, and they became assemblies, so basically cross sections. Some of them are very, very pretty and they look great, but may not match up, so you can actually go in and now that's a little bit more fine-tuning process, but definitely can do it, and once it's in your catalog, you can use it again and again. Just very similar to like a style within Civil 3D. So I may jump back to this later here, but once we have that, you just back in our preliminary road design here. Again, it adheres to true engineering principles. You can actually check your cut and fill considerations, making sure that you're in a setting that, or that it's that's going to work, or we're not making an absolutely ridiculous design that's going to cost a small fortune to build. And then, and also visually, you can actually see the cuts and fills right alongside the roads. And just kind of briefly looking through this thing, and I'll kind of hit some of the high points here. Well, in fact, I'm gonna take you for a little tour. Let's just do it. Let's do it. For those of you that can hang out for a minute. So what it is, on the left-hand side here, and this is another one of these sort of time checks. And you can see that they've really got this thing speeded up, and they have 10 steps. They've broken it out to 10 different steps. And this is a typical workflow, right? So you sketch out the path of the road where you want this to be. And what we're talking about here, just sort of set this up a little bit, is we've already established our existing conditions. Now we're saying placing roads. And in Civil 3D, it is what it is. I mean, if we're doing preliminary road design within Civil 3D, it's no different than doing, you know, finished products. You know, to show it off, you have to draw it and draft it correctly. So they're sketching them out. They're creating alignments. They're creating profiles. Right now, you can see that they're putting in a design profile. There's a secondary road that goes to the north here that they're putting in there. But before they do that, as you can see in the high speed, I wish I was that fast at this. In the high speed, yeah, I know, especially my talking. They put together an assembly. That assembly is going to have a lot of different, you know, targeting techniques. You know, depending if there's turnouts, turn-ins, whatever. You can see that it's grading to the existing ground. They've created a corridor. From that corridor, we need surfaces so we can check where, you know, volumes, everything else. And then here's that road where the two are going to meet together as a T intersection. So in this process, remember, everything is known. This is like they fired off a gun and said, go, and on the left-hand side, you know, everything is a known. And they're using the intersection wizard, which is a slick tool. There's a couple things in it that, you know, obviously need to be done after the fact, but it looks to me that they just put it together quickly. And they're checking the surfaces, doing some I guess, edits to the surface, fixing contours, tying things together, making sure the curve returns work out. Now, that is a process, and we all know that. I probably at least once a week I'm working with intersections or complicated roadway design, so that's not a real simple task. So then getting that done in 19 seconds, pretty quick. I don't know, in my big mouth there, I want to show that for a second.
That was a quick flash.
Yeah, it sure was. On the right, they started that, and again, the same speed process, but it took 40 seconds to achieve that. And if one last time, this is so darn exciting. And you'll see it start. They're drawing it in. It's adhering to all those standards. They draw that road in there, and you can actually visually see the cut and fill as it ends there. So what they did from those 10 steps, on the right-hand side is launch the road tool, and you just start drawing. When the roads connect to one another, they're intelligent, they see each other, and they automatically make your intersections. You can see that on the right-hand side there, where you can see the different striping, the stop line, all of that, and then the roads go right in. You can then click on those, turn, you know, this wouldn't be a candidate, but you can, you know, whatever the intersection type is, we can go into the intersections and we can manage those, turn them into cul-de-sacs, or not cul-de-sacs, sorry, but roundabouts, whatever it needs to be. And then again, that can all be kicked out into Civil 3D. But I jumped ahead of myself there because I was a little worried about time. Civil 3D, and everybody knows this, I'm just repeating myself, that's where we really do the hardcore calculations. And that's its strength, the precision of Civil 3D. However, it all can start from here. Looking at these numbers here, you can see, you know, it's what, 19 minutes to 40 seconds. Realistically, it's not going to be, or what I say, 19 seconds, 19 minutes. Realistically, it's not going to be 19 minutes. I mean, everybody knows that. Doing an intersection can take, you know, forever. And especially when you get into the fine-tuning aspect of it, this is a completely known variable. So it's just, let's race. And that's how they achieve those numbers. Again, and I want to underscore this, is InfraWorks, in no way am I saying this, it's better or anything like that. It's a tool for the preliminary design of this. It's not intended to be, you know, I'm not trying to create a competition between the two. They work and enhance each other. So, and we can see that here in this simple step. And that really would be about 40 seconds to do. So anyway.
Let me just throw out a question here that came in, because it's relating, I believe, to exactly what you're talking about.
Okay.
So Mike asked, how would you actually build a project using InfraWorks 360 if you are not using real accurate survey data? So it's,
Yeah.
it's exactly what you're talking
Yeah,
about,
that's
right?
a good question. So, well, and it depends. You know, that's where, you know, it all starts somewhere. It depends on where you're coming in at the job. If this is a maybe it's in the early preliminary stages where we're just trying to aggregate data together so we can start making some decisions. Can we put this road in here, or what does the terrain look like out in this area? If we don't have the budget to go out to, say, a rural area or wherever it may be, to start the preliminary work, is it the feasibility studies, that kind of thing, then this is a great tool for that. You're absolutely right, though. Was it Mike?
Mm-hmm.
You're absolutely right, though, Mike. Is if we pass that stage, and you know, I don't want to use the cliche 30, 60, 90s. You know, who knows what percentage point we're at this. But if things are looking like they're a go, we definitely have to go back out, gather data that's going to be tighter, and you'll be surprised. This data is surprisingly accurate. Now, I'm not saying it's down to the hundredth or anything like that. It's different in different areas, but we would definitely have to go out, gather that data, make sure we're tying it into, you know, appropriate control and datum, and then I would recommend, you know, that's where you would do a terrestrial survey of some sort, and then that surface that gets created could be added to the current surface that's in InfraWorks. So, and it could be even in pieces, you know, like patchwork. So if it's our subject area, that's the idea, is we would go out, gather that data, or if it's along a major road, do an as-built on the existing road, or do a rehab job, or who knows what it is. But it's the time saving across the board. I know I'm running long here, but there's years ago when this was first coming out, I went down to Autodesk University. They asked me to come down and sit in on a couple panels for the program, and they were giving out awards for some I don't know, some different techniques from folks around the world that are using the program. And one that really stuck with me was it was a rail job that if I'm not mistaken, it's been a while, but if I'm not mistaken, what they were trying to do is do some, you know, rehab on certain areas. I think they were going over a bridge in one area, and there was a tunnel in another area. But in these big, long stretches where they weren't truly doing, you know, the actual hardcore work, they figured it out how long it would take to terrestrial survey that, and I want to say it was like 2-3 weeks or something of that nature to try to do it the old traditional method. But what they did with this is they pulled up their information, they set their boundaries, they pulled in their surface through the GIS data that's provided, the open source data that's provided, and then from there they went out, so they got all that lined up. Then they went out and did the terrestrial survey and tightened up the control in areas that needed to be redone. So the bridges, the tunnel I guess what the problem with the trouble, or what, I can't remember what the tunnel situation was, but I know that they had to really tighten that one up especially. So they went out and did all of that. Then at the end of it, you know, once they get those pieces done, they just bring those into the overall model. And you know, according to them, they saved, like, I want to say it was 2 or 3 weeks of just survey work, not to mention processing and everything else. So it was amazing, really. And that's when I started going, wow, I can see where this could be a good tool.
Okay, so our Seahawk fan is asking what data is able to export from InfraWorks into Civil 3D, alignment surface profiles.
Yeah, alignment surface profiles. The cross sections in that do not come across. And I'm saying cross sections. The assemblies and that kind of thing, they're different entities. But however, surfaces do. So if we did tighten something up in a, you know, like an existing ground or existing conditions, that can come across. The main thing is, you know, pipes. That's another portion of the program. We can do preliminary pipe design. There's different studies, crossing streams, things like that, where it will very easily calculate the information for you. And then again, everything has to still be checked and really ran through the hardcore calculator to make it right. But we're not drawing cartoons. That's I want to make sure that that's understood. There's true design principles that are going behind the lines that we draw. You can draw anything you want, but it won't. You can break things and make it haywire, but it won't just start drawing bad information. So there is tables that are being adhered to during that design process. You can check your slopes. You can do all that. And then who knows at what percentage you're at. I don't want to call it a percentage, but the idea is you're getting pretty darn close. Now you take it into Civil 3D, and then you do have to do exactly what we do in Civil 3D. However, we have all of our alignments, our profiles, possibly our surfaces, and so forth. So now I wanted to, I've got a few minutes here. I wanted to show another tool real quick. Anyway, the other process, I guess, you just would do an insert. You can bring in or bring in a file from InfraWorks, and then you do have to recompile some things, but it's it's all there. Now, if you do the roundabouts and bring it into Civil 3D, I actually wanted to show how easy it is to create it, just so you can see the roundabout within Civil 3D. But you'll see they'll come in. You have different roundabouts within InfraWorks that you can pull up. Single lane, rural, several different types. Double lane. They've even started to add in the slip lanes. They're working on all that. And I am seeing more and more roundabouts are becoming around here. So whether we like it or not, I think they're kind of nice myself, and they're a fun puzzle to try to put together. However, I'm just going to throw one in here for you real quick. This is just a couple of alignments. This is just an Autodesk drawing that I picked up along the way. But if I show you from the start, it's really the same thing. In InfraWorks, it's a click. You just say, turn this intersection into a X, a roundabout. Within Civil 3D, you have to have, and make sure that's bold and underlined, you have to have vehicle tracking in order to manipulate, edit, and or design to its full, to its finished design. You have to have vehicle tracking. It's a part of vehicle tracking's tools. Vehicle tracking, if you haven't seen it, it's a swept path analysis tool, very similar to AutoTurn. It's Autodesk's solution, I guess, to AutoTurn. Very cool. Several. In fact, I could spend 2 hours just showing this. It's one of my favorite tools of the program. It's loaded with, I don't know, I want to say I think it comes with a minimum of 1,500 different vehicles, so everything you can possibly imagine. And then you have the ability also to take anything that's close, and I'll just crack it open here so you can see what I'm talking about. I'll just crack open the vehicle library, and you can see here's all of these different trucks, cars, planes, boats, everything. In fact, I'll just go up top just for a kick here. And looking down this, here's aircraft. There's private aircraft. There's commercial aircraft. I think Boeing's in here somewhere. There's Boeing. And anything you pick on, oops, you can see the actual different types of planes, boats, little boys, on and on and on and on. Every vehicle that you could imagine is inside this thing, darn there. And then if it's not, you just find something close, and it's very easy to manipulate these, and you actually copy it and you make it your own. So what I was going to do here is just throw this in real quick. Let's see here. I'll slide on down. I'll just grab. Oops. Actually, that's a wrong thing here. I didn't even know I should have said. I was talking about a cul-de-sac. So here's a very, very simple. I can cut to the chase with a lot of this stuff for you. If you do have vehicle tracking, just know this: it also has standards. So all you have to do is set your standard first, and then you start drawing. And I'll make this quick. But if I were to jump into, and you gotta get to know your buttons a little bit, right? But there's a roundabout standard explorer, and just like with the vehicles, there's all kinds of different, all the way around the world, different standard, roundabouts that you can find, and all of them can be adjusted. I'm just going to use whatever's selected here because I am running out of time. In fact, I'm past time, so I appreciate those of you that are hanging out for a second.
Which is the majority.
Oh, good, good. Hey, that's all right to hear. Fellow Raider fans. I heard the moan.
They all dropped out.
Yeah, I know. It's not easy being a Raider fan, I tell you. So anyway, I just selected, I don't know what it was, whatever the default one was. I think it was a single lane rural or something of that nature. So I'll leave it as it is. I'm not going to go through all these settings, but you can see you can cap things into surfaces. I can create corridors on the fly if I want to. And in fact, I'm going to do that here in a second just to show it off. But once it's all said and done, I'm just going to, there's nothing else I need to do, but I'll hit OK on this. And it matches my units, and it starts it off, and it asks me to name it. Now, again, forgive me here. I'm just going to whip through stuff real quick. But I want you to see the editing tool at the end of this. If this came in from InfraWorks, it is what it is coming from InfraWorks. There is design standards behind it, but this is the tool we would end up using to make it ours, to match our or make our design. Okay, but I'm doing it manually here just because of speed. And as I look down this thing, again, I can name it whatever I want to do, and I'm just going to hit OK to this, and you can see that there's the circle or the roundabout itself, and I'll place it somewhere close. Who knows? Right there. And once that's placed, oops. There we go. Oh, you little, hang on a sec here. Try that again. Talking too much. I think I hit close. All right, so anyway, I'll grab whatever the default is. I'll hit proceed. It looks like it matches up. And I'll say OK to this, place it, there it goes. I think I hit enter after this is what happened. So anyway, it gives me a pick box, and I can pick the arms coming into it. So I'm just going to pick the one that's coming in from the southeast there. I can name these if they were actually roads, who knows. You'll notice there is certain settings that we can make along the way. I'm going to leave the default because I want you to see after the fact. I'll just hit OK real quick. And you can see that arm came in, okay? And there is a little box out here. I'll leave that alone for a second. And I'm just going to work my way around this thing using the defaults. Forgive me here. I'm just doing it for to expedite this a bit. And all I'm doing is clicking and hitting enter. Again, you could go in and be much more accurate. Now, once it's all placed, there could be more. But I'm going to hit enter, and you'll see everything sort of lights up like a Christmas tree there. And this is where people get excited about this thing. You can see there's the fastest speed there going through here. But if I pick this is all relative and dynamic. Okay, I purposely placed it over just off. Who knows? Maybe this needs to be shifted. If I grab a central node there, I can actually move this. And Wendy, can you tell me if that's showing up?
It is.
Is it? Okay.
Yep. So, in real time.
So you can actually see this. Almost looks like a squid. If you stretch it up here, you can see how it starts dropping out. Okay. Now, one thing when I was talking about real-time analytics, I just kind of briefly mentioned it, but notice these little dialog boxes. See if I can zoom in a bit. So there's these little boxes on either side or at each arm, and what we're looking at is these are the presets, or as far as the standards are concerned. So I've purposely moved this into sort of a wonky position, and you'll see three different colors. There's a green, which means you're meeting the standard, and if I move this, notice, and hopefully it's showing up on your system there, but the updating as I move it. The green means you've met standards. You can see how they kind of start shifting colors around. The red means that you violated a rule. You could place it there, but you violated a rule. And then there's an amber color, I guess, as they call it, and the amber means that you're getting close. It's sort of like that one game where you start going hot, cold. So if you get a little too hot, it's not going to pass code. So anyway, I'm going to move this out of the way for a second. And maybe I do need to tie that right into center. I don't know, whatever, or right at that intersection. So I'm just placing it just to kind of speed up the process here. Now, all of this line work, there's different things we can do with it in case anybody's curious. That several different alignments have been created just off of those two main lines. There are all kinds of like curve returns, projections, you know, that, or profiles. So that's all getting created. We also have complete control of this thing, and that's the one thing I wanted to show everybody before I lost you. So if I pick the cul-de-sac there, and I went into its properties, I love this part of it, is there's a little box that pops up over on the left-hand side. And with that box, anywhere I go and start, you know, if you look down this list on the left, and it's pretty intuitive, I think. Once you do it a couple of times here and there, you'll be surprised. And I'm just going to grab one of these arms, you know, and I'll notice there's arm 1. If I select it, and it tells me where I'm at, showing me the number of it, right? And if I start clicking on the information, there's the approach, the entry, the exit, and of course, if you go pick on any side over here, like, well, let's look at the approach real quick, and the design speed. If I click, or actually that's not a good one. Deviation offset. So see how it actually shows you exactly where you're at, and it shows you where you're making, I guess, violating rules. Okay. If there's crosswalks in there, rumble stripes, all of this can be added in. Speed striping and so forth. You know, pick the next thing, different arms. Now this is just a, so you're noticing that's not changing, but it's telling you exactly where you're at. See, like splitter lanes, so forth. Okay. Now I'm going to turn this off for a second. I just want to show quickly with this. Remember, there's intelligence behind all of this, and this may not be your zone. However, you can take one that's close, just like with a Civil 3D style, and you can manipulate it and make it yours. So if I were to pick, let's see here, I'm just going to pick it real quick. Actually, I don't even need to do that. Up at the top here, and I'm not going to go through all these. There's just too many here. But I don't know. You can either, that's my edit roundabout, but let's look for something that might be kind of slick. Add a crosswalk, and select my roundabout, this one, and see how that crosswalk is shifting up and down wherever I want to place it. It'll actually go through like the splitter. But also, and if you were here, I'm pointing at my screen, so you can't see it. But see those signs? I don't know if you can quite make this out, but there's some signs just over in this area when I move this. Those signs are at a specific distance that, you know, you have to have a sign there that says either there's a crosswalk or you're coming up on or yield and that kind of thing. All of that has to be, you know, laid in correctly. So again, it's dynamic. It does that. Let me just hit escape here real quick. And I just don't have time to go. We can erase stuff. We can do all kinds of edit. What's something else that's worth doing? Rumble stripes. See how you can stretch them out. It's giving me the exact math as I'm doing it. What else do we have in there? Speed striping. So the fastest going through it. And I tell you what, I'm going to do one last thing here. I'm going to open up to questions or just let everybody go. So very, very easy to bring that in from InfraWorks, or for that matter, you know, create these right here. The last thing I was going to do with this, just so you can see the process, I can also select this, and this is the one that kind of gets the oohs and ahs for most folks, is after selecting it, I can go to my roundabout properties, and somewhere in here is a corridor, and I can just I can force it to create all of my alignments and also create my corridor. And maybe I'll have it create a corridor. Well, actually, I usually would do that differently, but you can create a top surface right off the bat. But I'll hit apply and all that kind of thing. And once I close this out, you can see that a corridor was automatically built. Now, I do know that looking at this, we'll just dump it into a quick viewer just to see what it did. Pretty slick. Cuts, fills, everything else. Now there's a little trick, I've seen a little bit of mixed results on it. So as far as building that top surface, I usually don't do it on the fly. This may not make sense to some of you, but if you were going to actually create this as a top surface, I would recommend, you know, when you're creating that corridor surface, don't just use the feature lines. Actually use the I'll just point it out to you on the fly here. If I were to grab it and say, okay, I need a this, when you're adding it in, usually 9 times out of 10 we're adding the top links. Use feature lines. I said that backwards, so I want to make sure I showed you. You can place them in there, and then you just add them all in as break lines, and that ensures that you don't get oddball cross triangulation. Then for my last trick, and we'll call it a day. And I thank you all so much for hanging out here. I knew I had about 3 or 4 hours actually. Last thing I promised you here, and just so you can kind of get the fun feel for this thing. This vehicle tracking, I think it uses, I hope I'm not saying this wrong, I think it's the Ackerman rule as far as figuring out the arcs and moving the vehicles. I'm just going to throw a quick vehicle in here just so you can see how it plays out. You have to pick your vehicle first, of course, find something close. I don't know what I have here. There's a single unit, I'll try this one. It's a truck. Say, okay, I've played with this drawing in the past, so hopefully this works. And then I'm just going to go ahead and just drive it and see what happens here. So I'll do an auto drive. Oh, sure. That's nice. Why not? Okay, so where's this drawing? Oh, okay. I'm going to try to drive this truck, have it fly around this corner here, come down here. I have a video on this. If anybody's interested, I can send you a video on much more in depth. But I'm going to throw this together real quick just so you get the process. So anyway, you place it and you orient your vehicle. And I'm going to go ahead and start proceeding. But the thing I love about this is notice my wheels. See how as I turn this thing, it's giving me my percents of turn. And you can see that it's not only drawing my envelope of the vehicle, but also the chassis. And I can try to make these corners here. And they purposely don't make it easy because it shouldn't be. However, there it is. They do have a couple of things like picking alignments, which allow me to make these turns much quicker. And clearly, I'm driving over the curve here. That's all right. Well, it's not. Oops.
Just another Friday morning.
Yeah, wait, it's been a long night. I'll use my, I'm trying to throw this together here. There we go. And then if I was try to back this thing up, give it a click. Now, this alignment thing that I'm talking about is, it's just makes the process, it's not a true alignment. It's just looking at it as a tangent with a bearing. And it's allowing me to, much easier place this thing. Okay, and I'm just going to hit enter, and I'm just about done. My last thing I'll do, just because it's sort of fun, just so you can see it. Anybody can do this. I don't have anything set up for this. This is not a slick demo by any means. It's just straight out of the box. And if you look at it, you can see again. There's the envelope. There's my chassis. Looks like I have a little problem here. I do have the ability to grab different grips. I can play with my turn widths. See how that's a ratio. I also have these grips that can hopefully get me around. Can I go over this center line? Who knows? Perhaps I need to pull this side, whatever. I'm just trying to match it a bit. Who cares? And then after it's all said and done, I can actually hit animate. Oops, let me grab it first. And if I wanted to animate this thing, this is how easy it is. It really is just straight out of the box like this. I selected it. I hit animate. I can give it a dimension, and then just like a I don't know, like a DVD player or something like that, I can hit play, fast forward. You'll see that there's a little. You can see how that's going around. I have different views of this thing, so I can grab these little slider bars. What am I looking at? Where am I looking from? I can take it up, down. I've lost my vehicle.
He's right there.
Oh, there he is. I can change, so the camera right now is looking from that single truck. I can actually do from the driver's view. Speed this up a little bit. I can take it back to my my tracking path. I'm backing up right now. I even have the ability when it's in a backup mode. I can even I can look out the back. I can change mirrors. You'll see it here in just a second as it starts backing up. That's a building there, or just take it up top. And what it'll end up doing is, as it starts backing up, I'll just let it finish because I think this is kind of slick. As it's going in there, hurry up, you little devil. People are hungry. And just like that, whoops, I did it from the driver's eye. That's looking in the rearview mirror there. You can do out my left side, right side, all that kind of stuff. So very, very cool. I'm going to stop there, though. I just wanted you to see that. Those buildings, in case anybody's wondering, those highly manicured trees, those are just simplicity. But those buildings, in case anybody's wondering, that's not from InfraWorks. Those are just 3D polylines that are extruded up. So you just grab a closed polygon. I think the command is extrude, and you can just give it whatever distance that you want, so you can kind of match up to local building heights, site distances, vertical checks, everything else. So it's full-blown deal. So anyway, thank you everybody very much. Sorry we ran a bit long, but like I said, I can go for another couple hours easy. So thank you very much. And if anybody has questions here, let me pop up some information at the end. Last time I was up in Seattle area, I took this. Actually, it was a little longer than that. I guess it was when it was still nice out there.
Okay, so I think in the interest of time, we're going to go ahead and wrap things up.
Okay.
But we did have a great comment from Sean. So Sean, I want to let you know that we will follow up with you directly. And I'm not so sure that you haven't just spurred an idea for a future webinar, because I think your comments and your questions was really good. So we're going to follow up with you directly.
And then we will, if we have to give him a prize, then somehow let's find something.
Yeah, if we use it as a webinar, we'll definitely send him a prize.
Like a Raider shirt or something.
Yeah. Okay, we're not sending Raider shirts. We want to keep our customers. So anyway, and he was just asking about. I'm just going to read that. I'm just going to read this to you. He's asking about. Do you know if a lot of clients want to know the engineering costs for a development of a subdivision or infrastructure improvements using InfraWorks 360? Are a lot of engineering firms going through this technique to notify their clients the effort and cost it would take to do a development project? So I think that's a very in-depth conversation.
Yeah, there's a couple of answers in there.
Yeah, and I think it would be good for us to reach out to some of our own customers and find out and get some real good information on this.
Yeah, one thing I can say in short is, you know, a lot of folks think of it as a preliminary tool, and it is, and there is a lot of costs built into it, so we can do I don't know, different materials, and we can actually assign volumes and everything else. So it does aid in that process. And if I'm not mistaken, I think we can even go into the pseudo assemblies there. And they're not simple 3D assemblies, but we can assign values inside of those for cost analysis as well. So in fact, I worked with a firm up in the Olympia area there. That's exactly what they were doing. And they had a real interesting group. It was a little bit of everybody wore a different hat at any given moment, and so they were designers and or planners, and they all kind of worked together, and they were using this tool, and it was helping them out as far as getting some preliminary costs and that kind of thing, and the numbers come out good. We've done some checks and whatnot, so they do come out good. Again, it's a preliminary design, but they come out good for that. So I'll leave it at that for now. So
okay,
thank you everybody so very much. I appreciate it.
Yeah, so we're going to go ahead and wrap up and close things out. the recording will be available. Probably I'll get it published over the weekend and get that available on Monday. And you did get one Go Raiders from Mike. And,
thank you, Mike. You're getting a prize.
This isn't the Ochre Show. We're not giving away cars on it.
Everybody reach under your seats.
Okay. All right. So any other questions? If we want to go in a little bit deeper, please reach out to us, because on any one of these softwares or the workflows, these fellows are the best around, and you can certainly get their attention and get their time to present just to your firm. So reach out to us, reach out to your account manager, and we'll make sure that we help you out with the next project. So thanks again, and hope to see you on our next webinar.
Indeed. Take care, everybody.